I'm Mike,
And I'm Amber. Welcome to the Covenant Chronicles,
where we tell you the truth about relationships.
giving you the tools to build the foundation you always needed. Welcome back to the Covenant Chronicles.
Hi.
Hi. I feel bad because we didn't do 2 podcasts last week, so now we got to make up.
Yeah, well, kind of had a kid in the hospital, and while it wasn't anything major, well, I guess
Kinda. He had
depending on-
surgery.
yeah, I was gonna say, I guess it depends on how you define major, because did have surgery, so is what it is. And they'll survive.
Yeah. Didn't do it on purpose. It just how the week went last week. So here we are now. And we're talking about
Communication, kind of. More or less how love languages affect communication and the role that it plays on communication. So,
you mean attachment styles.
sorry, attachment styles. Yes. Yes, I was looking at something to do with love languages. So, attachment styles and how they play a part in your communication. I mean, I guess love languages would too, but attachment styles are pretty important to understand because it will drastically affect your communication and how that goes. And if you don't understand your attachment style or your partner's attachment style, this can actually be a major issue
Yeah.
and create pretty big rift between you and your partner. But not understanding this so that you can understand how to be, I guess I would say, proactive in times of communication hardship.
Yeah. Well, I thought I'd kind of talk about what the different attachment styles are in case people don't know what they are. So there's secure attachment, which is what everyone strives to have, but most people do not.
Yeah,
Probably
a lot of people believe they
99% of
do.
people.
Yeah.
Avoidant, which can also be classified as dismissive avoidant.
Why are you looking at me?
You know why. There's
Keep
the
your eyes to
anxious
yourself.
attachment style. And then there's the disorganized attachment style, which can also be classified as fearful avoidant. Disorganized attachment is a mixture of anxious and avoidant attachment style. And I definitely fell in that category for most of my life. So we can kind of talk about how those affect people and what it looks like. If we're just going through like the basics of it, a secure attachment is the basis of it is having healthy boundaries, mutual trust and support in a relationship, and controlled conflict resolution. A secure, safe environment inside of your relationship. An anxious attachment style usually looks like fear of abandonment, need for constant validation, dependent on partner for self-worth. A dismissive avoidant usually avoids intimacy and vulnerability, has commitment issues, is guarded and closed heart. A fearful avoidant or disorganized attachment has a fear of rejection, a hard time trusting and relying on their partner. They have low self-esteem. And let's see, it says seeks and avoid others at the same time, which I did fantastically for many years. Distrusts own decisions, strongly fears rejection, and it says fearful of intimacy on this one as well, but I think that's a less less true thing. I've got several different things pulled up that kind of have descriptions of everything. So, um, from my past experience, I was highly disorganized and that I would get anxious about certain things and then quickly turn avoidant about things. And so that does all sorts of crazy things to your communication because one minute you're like trying really hard to get connection and communication, and the next you're like, well, screw you. I'm done talking to you. You can just do whatever you feel like doing. And so it's a really emotional roller coaster that's I'm glad that I don't ride anymore, but I've been there for a very long time. Um, would you like to discuss yours?
No.
I'm sure you wouldn't.
I would say I felt very dismissive, avoidant, which is interesting because it's changed over the years. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely morphed into dismissive avoidant, um, which is actually, for a while I kind of denied that. I was like, I don't have that problem. I don't know what you're talking about.
Mhm.
And you kept calling me out on it. You're like, you're probably a dismissive. Um, but it was good to go through that and actually understand that because, when we talk about things now, um, what I've shifted, right? Because historically I was, I would say almost more anxious attachment because I
Mhm.
always wanted to solve everything right now. Right. And then as time went on, um, I flopped into dismissive avoidant, um, to where I was just like, I don't want to deal with this. And I just avoid it altogether. Right.
Mhm.
And actually understanding that though, and being able to see that has helped a lot because I, I wouldn't say that I don't deal with it at all, because I do. And we talk about it. And, when what's interesting is because you and I have actually figured out where we fall in all of the attachment styles, communicated that, talked through it, given each other examples, and talked about, hey, when you do this, it triggers my whatever attachment style, blah, 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 and been able to work through that to where now when we are feeling that, and it does surface, we can actually identify it. And, we do a really good job of actually saying, hey, just so you know, I am battling with this right now. I'm trying to work through this with you, but here's the deal. Like tell me, hey, I really need to solve this. I'm feeling anxious, blah, blah, blah. Or I'll tell you, hey, there's a lot going on right now. And, I know you're trying to solve this or you may be feeling a bit anxious, but I am battling with my dismissiveness, where I just want to kind of ignore it and walk away from it, right?
Mhm.
Um, and it's been a pretty powerful tool, I would say, for us in the sense of being able to actually identify that, um, and not only in ourselves and be able to actually call that out and say, hey, this is where I'm sitting. So the other partner knows. And then it's been, invaluable in helping us communicate because we don't let ourselves get to that point of being full on, whatever that trigger is. But the flip side to that is also we can help identify it in our partner and work through that with them.
Yeah.
And I would say that we together have really been able to navigate this, and we didn't always, right?
No.
We weren't always good at this. I can say that we've talked about this before, and we definitely were not good about this in our previous marriages. In
Mhm.
fact, our attachment styles, I think, were different in our previous marriages, and then they
Yeah.
flopped, right? And then we come into the new relationship with us, and it's like, because we're not that old attachment style,
Mhm.
we're like, "Oh, well, I'm fine. I don't do that," you know?
Yeah.
Totally ignoring the fact that, well, yeah, we don't do that anymore, but now we do this,
Yeah.
right? And,
Yeah.
being able to see that and work through that, and even for a while, we weren't great at it. I was very dismissive, initially, like, when we first got together.
You don't say.
Listen here, lady. Um, there was things that I was good at. This was not one of them. And within that, it triggered your anxious side, and definitely would send us into these tailspins, which contributed, like we've talked about before when we first got together. We struggled with communication, and sometimes our tiffs would last days,
Yeah.
before they would get fully resolved. And now, it's crazy if they go past 5 or 10 minutes. Um, but that being said, I mean, this was a key part of that. And us getting to this stage is actually identifying what our attachment style is,
Yeah.
and actually really figuring out with people, like, or I guess within ourselves, of what our attachment style is, how does that play a part, and then be able to actually self reflect within our relationship and say, okay, I see how my side of this attachment style plays into our communication and either the success or failure of said communication.
Mhm. Yeah. Um, I found another chart that I think is actually better, but I when I read all of these things, I'm really reading them because I think most people don't know what their attachment style is, or maybe even what attachment styles are in general.
Hmm.
And so I think it's good to just give people examples of what each attachment style are. So while we're talking about ourselves and like things that we've worked through, people can kind of reflect and understand themselves. And I honestly encourage you that if you don't know what yours is and you've never like taken the steps to figure that out, you should go research it some and try to figure it out, because once you do understand, it gives you a deeper level of being able to self-reflect and to understand, like, when you're in moments of distress, like, why you're feeling certain ways that you're feeling, which then leads you to be able to better, like, communicate and work through things. Because if you don't know, like, you're just out here doing things,
Hmm.
and it tends to cause a lot of issues in relationships. So I'll do secure last because I feel like I think both of us have really kind of finally like shifted into secure, but I think there's always moments that you might like slip out of it for a second, and that's something we can talk about as we're going through this, but
Yeah.
um I think we have gotten to that point of being in a more secure attachment style with each other, but let's talk about the other 3 real fast. So, anxious. They have a negative, insecure view of themselves, but a positive, stable view of others. They tend to be very dependent. They have a fear of losing relationships. They have emotional ups and downs, they elevate their partner above themselves. They tend towards clinginess when apart. They worry about being disappointed or abandoned. They're anxious with different perspectives and tend to be the pursuer in a relationship. Avoidant, which would be like a dismissive avoidant, they have a positive, unstable view of themselves, but a negative, insecure view of others. They're independent and self reliant. They're fearful of intimacy. They elevate themselves above their partner. They're reluctant to rely on others. They view dependence as a sign of weakness. They set rigid boundaries, basically just put up a whole bunch of walls. They challenge diverse perspectives. They seek distance and avoid attachments. And they avoid or withdraw from conflicts. And then fearful avoidance or disorganized attachment, which is a mixture of anxious and avoidant. They have a negative, insecure view of themselves, a negative, insecure view of others. They seek and avoid closeness. They long for love, but also reject intimacy. They struggle with scorekeeping. They fluctuate between expressive, supportive, and distant, unavailable. They set and then don't maintain or respect boundaries. They embrace and reject diverse perspectives. And they pursue and withdraw to avoid being hurt, which is very much how I used to be in some ways. Now, the secure attachment has a positive, stable view of self, a positive, stable view of others. They're interdependent. They're comfortable with intimacy. They're open and trusting. They see their self as an equal partner. They tend to stay connected when apart. They set and respect boundaries. They rely on themselves and others to manage distress. They welcome diverse perspectives and they seek connection, but also provide space when needed. So, with that being said, like, I do want to kind of set like the expectation that like you're probably going to find out that you are anxious, avoidant, or disorganized whenever you go to figure out your attachment style. Like,
Mhm.
there's a possibility you could be in a very secure relationship, and have a secure attachment style. But the more likely thing is that you're going to figure out that you're one of the three. But in saying that, like, it is possible to get to a secure attachment. You don't always have to stay in the attachment style that you find out you are, which is what you were saying earlier is like we've kind of shifted through different attachment styles throughout our lifetime,
Mhm.
both of us, but now have kind of shifted into the more secure attachment with each other and within ourselves. But I definitely have, at times been purely anxious in my attachment style, but there's also been times that I've been just avoidant in my attachment style. And then, we got together and I kind of became a disorganized attachment style where like I was anxious, but I was also avoidant. And so you kind of go through phases where you have to figure out what you are and what's happening within yourself to make you feel the way that you're feeling and why you're kind of in that attachment style at that moment. But also how that relates to how you're communicating with your partner and why you act the way that you do whenever you have an argument and why you feel the way that you feel. If your partner brings you, something, I want to say conflict, but it sometimes isn't even conflict. It's just your partner bringing you something that turns into conflict because of your attachment style. They might bring something to you just saying, hey, like I felt this certain way today, and I just wanted to bring it up with you. And suddenly that can completely shut you down because, you know, you just don't want to deal with it and you just don't have time to deal with it.
Mhm.
Or from an anxious perspective, your partner just brought you that and now you're completely anxious about it and you're like, "Oh no, what happened? What did I do? What's going on? Like, what do I need to fix?" Like the very anxious side of things. So, just knowing and understanding that can really help you work through conflict in your relationship.
Yeah, it's the biggest struggle I think that we experience, early on in relates in regards to not understanding the attachment styles, was really, I mean, just that of not understanding it. And so things would happen, things would occur, right? And we just wouldn't understand them, right? And then it would trigger us even more. So, for example, when I was operating from a place of, dismissive avoidant, and you were in that kind of disorganized, anxious state, you know, something would happen. We would have an area of disconnection. Your subconscious would basically say, okay, I need to fix this. I need to fix this. I need to reconnect. I need to reconnect. I can't, and like in this freak out mode.
Mhm.
And for me, I'm like, yo, I don't want to be anywhere near this. I don't want to I just want to get away. I want to not have to deal with any of this. Like just whatever.
Yeah.
Right. And so, which of course, on both sides is like this loop, right? And you could almost take those two things. And if you were to take a piece of paper, and I'll give you the visualization, right? So you take this piece of paper, and on the left hand side, you write, you know, disorganized or anxious, right? And then on the right, that's on the left hand side of the paper. And then on the right hand side of the paper, you put dismissive avoidant, right?
Mhm.
And then you're going to go over here to the left hand side where we wrote the first time, and you're going to draw this arc, right? Almost like a little half circle, and you're going to draw an arrow to the dismissive avoidant. Then you're going to go to the bottom of the dismissive avoidant, and you're going to draw another little arc and an arrow, right? To where now you almost got a circle with these two arrows to where you're just literally looping in a circle, right? And
Yeah.
that's what we would do. And then the more I would avoid you, the more it would trigger you and create this anxious, I have to fix this right now, which would then make me be like, I don't want anything to do with you even more. And then it was just us building up in these states of
But I think that's why it took so long for us to get out of that cycle is because, like, I would be super anxious about it in the beginning and just wanna fix it, fix it, fix it, and you would then start, like, pulling away and being like, "I don't wanna deal with this, don't wanna talk about it," like, and then that would lead me to a point of being like, "Well, then F you. I'm done talking to you. I don't care,"
mm-hmm,
which then would just cause a whole 'nother set of issues.
mm-hmm,
Um, so we would kind of just go in this cycle until eventually, like, at some point, one of us would be like, "Listen, we need to figure this out because this is ridiculous." And then we would talk about it and figure it out and move on. But it did take us a long time to get to that point when we were in these cycles.
for sure. For sure. And I think a big part of that is just simply not understanding, um, you know, really just not understanding how this manifested, right? So we, in the moment, would be feeling certain things, but we didn't understand our feelings or why we were feeling these things, let alone our partner and why they were feeling these things,
Mhm.
right? And so this is a perfect example. And, you know, I believe most relationships really struggle with this. And when there is times of conflict, right? Um, Not understanding your attachment style allows things to really spiral out of control a lot quicker than they need to, or a lot bigger than they need to be, right?
Mhm.
Because you don't have this place where you're like, hey, okay, I understand what's going on, right? And like you said, we've come to this place of secure, I guess you could call it, secure attachment now, and this place that we sit in, but we do still from time to time, right? And this is I guess a great point about relationships is everybody has this false assumption of like, well, it has to be perfect, right?
Yeah.
And the truth of the matter is that it's never going to be 100% perfect because it's a never ending journey, right? And we've talked about it before of the love is a choice kind of thing, right?
Mhm.
And that's where we're choosing these things, where we're actually choosing to say, okay, let me try to understand my partner, right? And there are times where we are in a secure place, but something will occur, things happen, and we kind of start falling into that little bit of an old trigger. And that's where we discuss it and we say, hey, look, this is how I'm feeling, just so you know. But then both of us dig in and say, okay, well, let's navigate this together, right?
Yeah.
But for most relationships, I think really sitting down and just, I'm a big fan of pen and paper. So they're going to hear that a lot, right? Is the writing down thing, right? Technology is great. I love technology. No matter where you fall on the spectrum, I'm pro tech. Even though I'm not the best at it all the time, I'm pro technology in many, many ways. And I push technology, and part of, dealing with like coaching clients or business clients, part of that is helping them implement technological systems inside of their business. However, when it comes to these basic things and problem solving, there's nothing like pen and paper, right?
Mhm.
And so with that being said, writing down like what you're feeling when you and your partner have conflict, helps you identify like really going through that list, or these charts like you found. And they aren't hard, right? Like you can Google search these things, you can find them everywhere. There's books on it. There's all this stuff, right? Understanding it at a deep level can definitely help. But if you're starting this journey, just understanding a basic level of like, hey, these are my feelings when we're in conflict. Okay, what attachment style does that put me in?
Mhm.
Right. And then being able to reverse engineer that to say, okay, well, now I understand when my partner does X, Y, and Z, right? Because this is what, it is a label. And we do talk about labels and my issue with labels for everything. However, it puts it in perspective in a way that you can understand it.
Mhm.
So when you and your partner get in conflict, and whether you're the husband or the wife, you just want to leave and you want to leave the house and you want to go get in the car, you want to drive for 2 hours and completely ignore them. Or you're sitting here going, I have to solve this right now. And you get all anxious and in this freak out mode and like, why can't we just solve this? Why can't we? We just need to solve it. Like, it has to be fixed. It has to be fixed. We have to fix it now. Right. Or the other variations of this, right?
Mhm.
Where your walls may go up and, you want to beat a dead horse as far as like a point you're trying to make and they're not understanding it and this, that, and the other, right? Like that is common stuff that you see inside of relationships, right?
Yeah.
And the challenge is some people won't admit to their own feelings,
Yeah.
right? So they're like, oh, me and my partner, we're good, blah, 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 and oh, we kind of had a disagreement and this and that, da, 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 da. Da. Well, really deep down, right? She wanted to get in the car and just drive for hours.
Mhm.
But then all these other things of, oh, well, if I leave, then he's going to call me a bad mom because the kids are sleeping or, if I leave, maybe, women get inside their heads, right? So maybe you think you would be a bad mom for leaving or you're fighting the urge just because like no, I have to stay and I have to sit in this and I just have to endure it. And, and for guys, like, we get hard headed and we either one of two things, right? Like we just want to leave and we'll go out the door and slam the door and go get in the car, or, we're arguing and arguing and arguing, trying to solve it and get our point across. And we're going to fix this right now. And the basis of a lot of this is really just your attachment style, which is
Mhm.
a really fancy way of saying how you connect with your partner
Yeah.
and how times of conflict can influence that,
Yeah.
right? And how times of just in general connection, right? Because maybe it's not conflict, right? Maybe it's other situations. And you see this manifest a lot too of like we've talked about the whole location thing, right?
Mhm.
There's nothing wrong with sharing your location with your partner. If your partner is, look, to be honest, some of the crazy crap I do, you probably should have my location, right? But like it's, for the most part, like I tell you where I'm going to be, I tell you what I'm going to do, whatever. I- If it is that situation, right? Hey, your husband has a motorcycle and he sends you his location so that if anything were to happen while he's out on his motorcycle, you can, track it. Or
Yeah.
like we've talked about stuff that we've had with friends, you'd mentioned something, I think a while back about, some friends of yours years ago, there was a situation or actually that was probably while we were together. One of your old friends, basically her husband, um, stopped responding. He was going kayaking or rafting or some crap like that.
Yeah.
And basically, like, she had his last known location because he did share his location. It turned out he was okay. He just got himself in a hairy situation, took longer to get back to his phone than he should have. But, she was able to start looking for him. Those are situations that it makes sense, right? You got to love technology. We have the ability to do this. Certain situations, sure. What I will say is probably 75% of people that share their location with their partner or set that expectation inside of a relationship is not for those purposes. They will tell you it is for those purposes. But if they are truly being honest with themselves, it is because of one of these attachment styles, the disorganized or the anxious or the whatever,
Yeah.
where, oh my
They just
goodness,
wanna know
I
where they
can't,
are.
yeah, I haven't heard from my partner in 2 hours. They're ignoring me. I got to know where they're at. Maybe this or that, or all these million different things that could occur, right? And once again, like, if you don't like that or you want to lie to yourself, cool. Keep lying to yourself. You don't have to listen to our podcast. You can take offense to it, whatever. Like, it is what it is. But let's be honest, because if you truly want to fix things and you truly want to progress forward, being honest with yourself about your own feelings and your relationship is step one,
Yeah.
right? And until you are, and notice what I'm saying here, this is not step one of I'm going to go unload every piece of honesty to my partner. Should that be part of it? Yeah, at some point, right? But step one is being honest with yourself because you can't be honest with anybody unless you're honest with yourself first.
Yeah.
And with that being said, being honest with yourself includes how you are attached to your partner, the feelings, the emotions that come up in times of conflict, the feelings and emotions that come up when you are distant from each other,
Mhm.
right? I'll give an example of us. On Friday, I basically spent a bunch of time with a friend of ours,
Mhm.
right? Him and I were doing a lot of stuff. We were building, this is a somewhat new friendship, right? And we've hit it off really well. And you know, that couple is a really amazing couple. And so we do connect with them. But some of this was simply building rapport. Some of it was business. Some of it was us running through mindset stuff, right? But it is this time of just being with another guy and working on healthy things in life, right?
Mhm.
Throughout that day, I spent a lot of time in deep conversation. With that, you and I communicated a little bit, right? Like there was at some point, you sent a text, "Hey, hope you're enjoying your time. I love you," something like that. I updated you, at a certain point, "Hey, him and I got done having breakfast. I got a couple errands to run, this, that, and the other. Then we're gonna go back and meet up, over at the coffee, whatever it's called, coffee place,
Yeah.
cafe, right?" Um, but outside of that, like that was most of our communication until we got a little later in the day, and you said, "Hey, you know, not trying to rush you. Um, eh, Trying to plan out, this evening. So do you know like when you're going to be doing this?" Mind you, left at like 9 in the morning, and this text of like, "Hey, do you know how thing like what your plan is for this evening? Blah 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 blah," came at like probably 2:30, 3 o'clock.
Yeah.
Right. My point in this is when you look at like secure attachment, you were enjoying time with, the kid of ours that was home, because they'd, come out of the hospital then. And you were spending time with them. And with that being said, I was, here in town spending time building this relationship, cultivating the relationship, working on some stuff that I needed to work through, some stuff that they needed to work through, all that sort of stuff, right? But there was never this like, "Oh my goodness, I need to text her because I haven't talked to her in an hour or
Mhm.
20 minutes," right? There was never like a whatever, like this, "Oh, I have to, I have to, I have to communicate because like if I don't, oh, she might be mad," or, "Oh, what if I don't? What if, what if this type mindset," right?
Mhm.
And I guess asking you, I would assume by the fact that I didn't receive a bunch of texts throughout the day, you were kind of in the same space.
Yeah. I mean, I knew what you were doing and stuff. Like, I wasn't super worried about it. Like, we texted each other when we needed to, know something or communicate something, but
Right. Right. And there was, like you went to the store, I believe, and, asked me if I needed anything or that sort of stuff. But that's what I'm getting at, right? Is there was a time in my life where I was not like that with my partner,
Mhm.
right? So, and I had even commented on how much I appreciated you, right? And maybe this is something, well, I guess we haven't really discussed it, so we can discuss it now on the podcast. But I had basically said, how much I appreciated you, um, and basically for allowing me the space to cultivate this relationship and to spend time with, this guy and everything that came from that. And you would kind of like, "Well, yeah, like you need, friendship. You need a good group of guys around you. And part of that is having time to like spend with these guys and blah, 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 blah." And it was like this normal thing, right? But part of my appreciation for that was the fact that that hasn't always been the case in my life,
Mhm.
right? And that is where now knowing what we do know and seeing the things that we do, understanding our past, like in previous relationships, understanding our past now, I can identify these things were all rooted in the attachment styles,
Yeah.
right? And here's the thing, like we put all kinds of justifications on this stuff, right? where we will try to justify, well, my partner should just communicate with me and da 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 da. You're right. Your partner should communicate with you. But if they're feeling like they don't have to, here's the funny thing, right, about this. If you are in a place, because I will voluntarily tell you, not once have you ever made me feel like I have to tell you where I'm going. Not once have you ever talked crap about me being like, or me updating you on where I'm at.
Mhm.
But out of respect, like even just, when I was meeting Friday, we sat at one spot, right? Had breakfast and coffee together for 2.5 hours. Hey, I'm going to go run errands and then we're going to go meet at this cafe, right? You didn't ask for it. You've never asked for it, but I gave you the information. But what's so interesting about that is then you fall into these situations where in a lot of relationships, one party won't communicate
Mhm.
and the other will be up in arms about why they don't communicate. And in a sense, they're both wrong and they're both right because neither of them understand their attachment style. They're both triggering each other and they're
Yeah.
both just dealing with it. And then they wonder why they're always in conflict.
Mhm. Yeah. Well, and I kept thinking, like, I wanted to make a point on, being in a secure place within ourselves and our relationship, but also, like, when we do have, moments of argument or disagreement, whatever, like, that it can seem as though we're slipping into, you know, our avoidant or anxious self or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But, one of the points of the secure attachment was that you rely on self and others to manage your distress. So
Mm-hmm.
while like it can seem as though we're kind of slipping back, at the same time, we do communicate with each other so that like we know what's going on with each other, but we also can like take the time to um manage our own feelings because there's a lot of times that I'll be like, well, I'm trying to figure out why I feel this way first, before I just like word vomit everything to you or whatever the case is. But then I do bring it to you so that you can, we can work on it together.
Mm-hmm.
I also have times where I'm like, I just need a minute. I'm going to go read my Bible and then we can discuss whatever it is.
Yeah.
Um, but that has drastically changed, because that's not at all how I used to be. I would just immediately be like, I need to fix this right now. Or, just freak out about whatever the situation was instead of taking the time to figure out why I'm feeling the way that I'm feeling, or taking time for me to like manage my own emotions by, like I said, reading the Bible for a few minutes to just like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
what's happening? Let's move forward. So it's kind of interesting to just talk about that in the sense of like, really, a year and a half, 2 years ago, we were in drastically different attachment styles.
Mm-hmm.
Yours was dismissive avoidant, mine was very disorganized. But today we sit here in a very secure relationship. So, like, it's possible to get to that point, but it does take a lot of work. And the starting point is figuring out where you lie in your attachment so that you can start slowly changing things within your relationship and your communication to get to a more secure place.
Yeah. It I just wanted to touch on the fact that, like, circling back to what you said, right? When you talked about like the 2-year thing.
Mhm.
that is exactly it, right? We've been in this place for some time now, right? So I don't want to say, hey, it takes 2 years. But from the time you identify like where you're at and actively start working on your relationship, and this is one piece of that puzzle, like you've got a solid year
Mhm.
of you and your partner working on it. And the reason I bring this up is because I think so many people, they talk about, well, I want to fix things. And then they try it for 2 weeks and
Mhm.
something happens and they're like, oh, see, nothing is working.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
not
you're 2 weeks
overnight.
in, right? And let's not even mention the fact that most of them don't understand half the stuff we've even talked about or have even tried to do any inner work. It's
Mhm.
this half-ass attempt of, okay, we're both gonna try something different.
Mhm.
Okay.
It
But
takes
like
time.
let's go back to here. Let's circle it back to the Bible, right? Because people are gonna and we can talk about the Bible or worldly stuff, right? It doesn't matter because it's the same. And this is how, when you talk about biblical concepts, you want to know if something's true. Well, one, it's consistent throughout the Bible, but two, it applies to daily life in the same way,
Mhm.
right? And it's this principle here in the sense that you have to change your identity. In other words, and it's really not changing your identity, it's realizing who you actually are and the place that you've been living in
Yeah.
that is not congruent with that. And then the actions will follow
Mhm.
because in the relationships everybody always tries to change their actions and it doesn't work, and then they go see a therapist or a counselor, and because they're a professional with a piece of paper that says, well, I know what I'm doing, they try to tell them to change actions. And guess what, there's a reason why it's like over 90% failure rate for couples that are in therapy or counseling,
Yeah.
right? And this is the same thing. And I just want to identify that and let people know. Okay, do you go back to our covenant podcast? Do you actually believe in the covenant that you've created?
Yeah.
Right? Or did you do it half heartedly?
Mhm.
Because if you do, and you did create a true covenant and you are standing on that covenant, then just know if it takes a year or year and a half of both of you like actively working on this, well, how many more years do you have together?
Yeah.
Right?
And it'll drastically change the years to come.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so just be aware that it's not an overnight thing. But the first step is identifying your feelings and emotions around how you feel when you're in conflict with your partner, how you feel when you're disconnected from your partner, how you feel when there's distance from your partner.
Mhm.
Disconnection and distance are two very different things.
Yeah.
You can be very connected and have distance. You can be very close and be disconnected,
Yeah.
right? But identifying those feelings to where you can actually understand and then applying them,
Mm.
figuring out what category you fall under, right? And I hate labels, but it is a tool,
Yeah.
right? Understand that labeling yourself something versus saying, well, this is how I've previously been are two very different things, right?
Yeah.
It's like we talk about all the time. The whole like society with like addictions and whatnot, right? And my favorite one in the faith-based community is the porn addiction, right? That's the one. And I'm like, they don't have a porn addiction. They had an issue. They're not, being congruent with who they're supposed to be, but they don't have an addiction. Well, I can't. Well, yeah, because you get up every day and you tell yourself you have an addiction, or you let other people tell you have an addiction. And this is very much the same way, right?
Yeah.
So be careful, right? Understand that we gave you the explanations and the worldly labels that to help you at least understand and identify. Okay. This doesn't mean this is who you are. This means this is who you've been in the past. Okay. And now it's time to start being who you are in the future.
You are secure,
Right.
but you have previously been
Correct.
anxious or you have previously been avoidant. And I will throw in the little caveat that typically you and your partner are going to be completely different attachment styles because you that's just the polarity of our world.
Mm-hmm.
You attract each other.
The
So
opposites attract thing is very true when it comes
yes.
to attachment styles.
So if you are anxious, your partner is probably
Uh-huh.
avoidant. Or if you are avoidant, your partner is probably anxious or
Mm-hmm.
disorganized. That could be the case too. But that tends to almost always be the case. But if you start identifying it and tell yourself, I am secure, but I was previously avoidant, now I know, and I can start making changes to move forward to be secure in myself and my relationship.
One of my favorite pieces of advice when it comes to that. Up until now.
Yeah. Up until now, I was anxious. So go figure out your attachment style.
We won't harass them about the relationship audit this week.
Not on this one.
Yeah.
Maybe the next one.
Even though you should go do it. Definitely go do it.
It would be helpful.
CovenantChronicles.com.
But
Find the relationship audit. It's free. You don't even got to put in your information. You literally just click it and print it out. Anyways, that being said,
you should figure out your attachment style first.
Yes. Yes. Oh, what if they did the relationship audit and then on the back, since they're going to print it out, unless they're one of those weirdos that print stuff on double sides of the paper. Who does that?
Me.
Okay, that drives me nuts. It drives me insane when people do that. I don't care about saving paper. You're killing the trees already by printing stuff. Get over it. Anyways, so if you don't print stuff double-sided like a weirdo and you print it on one side, they could do the relationship audit and then on the back side use that as scratch paper to write their thoughts.
And figure out their attachment style.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
yeah.
There you go. Just some little thoughts for you.
Mm-hmm. All right, on that note, go figure out your attachment style. What it used to be.
Yes, because you are secure now. But you were previously something else.
Mm-hmm.
And take that into your week and start fixing your relationship.
Yeah, go do that. It's a good year for it. We're still in February. Everybody's talking about what they're doing with their year. Fixing your relationship this year would be a great Christmas gift. Just saying.
Yeah, you can definitely do it. Trust me. Ask me how I know.
Yeah. On that note.
All right, guys. Have a fantastic week.
Okay, bye.
Bye.